Hello and welcome back to the RevOps Show. We're already in the middle of October. How in the world did that even happen? It seems like every year continues to speed up. Just me? Okay. Being in October means we've officially hit the fourth quarter, which can bring a lot of chaos and a rush feeling that everything needs to get done because the year is finally closing out. What does the fourth quarter look like for RevOps, and what should your team be doing? Doug and Jess get into all of those questions here on the RevOps Show.
Jess.
Doug.
Wow, that was a very curt Doug.
It was quite curt. I didn't mean for it to be. I'm sorry.
Like Jess. Doug.
Doug.
You know what I'm still waiting for?
What? The pause button?
It's time to get things started on the most sensational, inspirational, celebrational, motivational. This is what we call
I figure if I play it long enough, someone will eventually send us something that we can use.
That's just going to be how we start every episode now with the actual Muppet Shows intro.
We could start like this.
All right.
I'm always good to start with Professor McConaughey. You know that.
Professor McConaughey. That is still a scary thought. Not going to lie. So, Jess, it has been, what did we talk last week?
We did. We've recorded 2 weeks in a row. The streak.
Did we actually survive last week? Like, we actually had time to record last week?
I'm shocked. We were both very tired.
Oh, yeah. I think my focus filter was probably pretty low. I think you
even commented on the fact that when I'm tired, I'm quiet on the episode.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I thought we were going to okay, strong end of the third quarter, crazy strong end of the third quarter. All right. First week, fourth quarter, going to be able to take a breath. That theory did not last. Last.
Yep.
Jess?
Yeah.
How is it October already?
I have no idea. It's been a crazy year. It was a crazy month, a crazy quarter. It's just, I don't know. It won't stop. It doesn't stop.
Can you still call it crazy?
If that's the new norm, probably not. This is just life now. It's because we're in the storming phase. That's what
And so I'm listening to a book called The Neuroscience of You. It's basically reverse engineering a whole bunch of things, teaching you how your brain works, and one of the things she talks about is, she's not going to talk about normal, not normal, because that actually normal, not normal has lots of different meanings. So like when you say that's crazy or not normal, is that like crazy that it's not typical? Is it crazy that it's dysfunctional? Is it crazy that
Yeah.
So these are all the things. These are all the things that I think about.
I'm that and so much more.
Once again, I emphasize it is amazing that I get anything done. You keep asking me to be more productive, and I keep telling you we can't account for the productivity that I have.
Ain't that the truth?
Jess, your mom must be talking to a lot of people.
Why did we have an increase?
Looks like numbers keep going up. Apparently,
either that or she just keeps acquiring more devices.
This RevOps thing might be real after all.
Maybe. Time's gonna tell on that one.
It actually will.
I realize I said that sarcastically, but I did genuinely mean it.
It'll be really interesting because the time for RevOps to shine is what is highly predicted to be the environment for the next 15, 18, 24 months. Let's see if RevOps steps up the way it's supposed to.
Let's see.
So what are we talking about today, Jess? What are we talking about?
We are talking
Bring some focus
about
to the show. Create some order here.
We're screwed. We've got to stop putting this on Friday. You expect me to bring order.
Chief staff.
You are technically part of staff, so I guess that means that I'm in charge of that. Okay. You want to talk about?
Jess?
Yes.
You are in charge of me.
That's a scary thought. You want to talk about fourth quarter, end of year for RevOps?
You keep using this word want.
So you feel like you need to talk about that.
So I'm
assuming you have thought.
So I've seen a bunch of posts of late.
Oh boy.
Just kind of talking about. So I guess my first question to you is the fourth quarter different from any other quarter? On all other nights we eat any type of bread. Why on all other quarters we eat any type of bread? Why on this quarter do we only eat unleavened bread?
I was going to say that it's cooler.
It is. It's getting cool. Yeah, it's actually it's nice, beautiful day. It's actually 70-some degrees, sunny here after
the quarter
5.5 straight days of rain.
How this quarter is different. It's cooler. So it's an interesting question. I think it's different because there's more pressure put on sales reps, put on RevOps from the powers that be to close business, to get things done. This is the time of year where budgets are done. So I don't know that it's different, but there's certainly more pressure put on that group.
Tell me more.
Well,
We have shut Jess down.
You
Jess,
have.
on a podcast.
You broke me.
60 seconds of silence doesn't play well.
Thanks. I'm processing because I don't know what more there is to tell. I mean, I don't know if that makes it different or if we're just psyching ourselves out. Like,
should it be different?
No. So we've talked about looking at things like particularly when you're looking at closed revenue or when you're trying to track metrics, like looking at it from a trailing standpoint. So like we talk about trailing, I believe 13 months or is it 12?
12.
12. Okay. For some reason, I don't know why I thought we were looking at it 13, but so when we talk about
when we would do spreadsheets or views, we would include the 13th month so you could quickly see the comparison.
That's why I had that in my head. So looking at things from a trailing 12-month standpoint versus quarter over quarter. So no, I don't think the fourth quarter should be any different, but people certainly behave differently in the fourth quarter because of pressure, because of wanting to hit a number. You want to end the year and tie a nice little bow on it. So I think
is that a bug or is that
different.
a feature?
That's an interesting question that I haven't thought about.
That's why we do these podcasts, Jeff.
No, I know. So it certainly lights a fire up under people's butts. So it might be a feature.
So there's an interesting question or an interesting philosophy, I think that plays to this, which is, every month is the end of the year. That's the trailing 12-month aspect. Yeah. So what? Because when December's over, you know what happens?
January.
At least it's always happened since I've been around, is January comes. I've had good Decembers and I've had really bad Decembers.
I've been here for both.
And do you know what the difference in the time frame from going from December to January?
You're unhappy or you're happy.
No, it's the same. No, it's just like it's exactly like it goes from the 31st to the 1st in the same period of time.
Well, so I have a question for you on this about, because so we hit the end of the quarter and you brought up that we were just shy of a particular number at that quarter. Like, so you obsessed about this too, because the question is, why does that matter? Why does that matter that we didn't hit that number at the end of the quarter?
Well, in fairness, just so everyone understands, the number that we barely missed was a number that was actually our target for the full year. So it's not like we missed our number.
But we didn't miss our, thank you for clarification. We didn't miss our number, but you were unhappy. I
don't know that you can actually say that I was actually unhappy. So what I would tell you is it matters and it doesn't matter. The end, there's a value to a finish line.
Okay.
So here's the thing that's interesting about nature. Every year there's spring,
Mm-hmm.
and every year there's fall. Every year there's summer, and
Yep.
every year there's winter.
Unless you live in Texas, in which case you have summer and you have winter, but you do not have fall or spring.
You have swamp. I guess you have in Texas you have probably February and summer.
It's accurate.
And in Canada you have July and winter.
Yeah, that's fair.
But the point of that is that you plant in the spring, you harvest in the fall,
Okay.
you clean out in the winter, right? If you don't clear the field, then your harvest won't expand. You won't right. The grass doesn't grow if you don't cut the weeds.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's, the whole, one of the problems I think that we have economically is we have done so much over the last 2+ decades to soften and mitigate cycles. Actually, I heard Scott Galloway on Pivot refer to the economy as this is the Elvis economy. It's been pumped up with propofol, steroids, right? Just to to make it work. I heard someone else maybe call it the Bernie economy, the weekend at Bernie's economy. Because there's a value to recessions. It's called, the whole basis of capitalism is creative destruction, right? You've got to clear and grow. So
right.
If, for all the things where I talk about that I don't think monthly quotas lead to win-win outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
They do lead to short-term higher performance, right? If I have to hit every month, right? I mean, give me a $1.2 million target versus a $100,000 target a month. If you give me a $100,000 target a month, I'll produce more than a $1.2 million annual,
right.
even though theoretically, they're the same. So I do think that there's an aspect of, when I was a sales rep and I was on a system where a number was quote unquote reported, I always printed out 2 days. I always printed out my production report on 2 days. It was the last day of the year and the first day of the year. Because I wanted to print the last day of the year so I could, I had a record of what I did for the year.
Okay.
Sometimes I would forget to do that. I would always print out the first day of the year. Because the first day of the year always showed up as all zeros.
Okay.
And so it was, alrighty, it's all new.
Yeah.
If I had a shitty year last year, if I had a great year last year, well, guess what? I don't get to rest on my laurels. I don't have to suffer. The fourth quarter, that's when 90% of people make President's Club or don't make President's Club, right? That's when you report your number. I found it fascinating, and I think I give Drift credit for this. When they announced that they changed their fiscal year to February through January, and the reason they did that was that they found that December is such a strenuous month for so many different reasons, that the idea that was the end of your quarter and the end of your year all at the same time really just whereas kind of letting you have that to the end of the year sprint, right? And so, I believe that we play an infinite game, but I think we play the infinite game in the way to manage the infinite game is in various finite sprints, right? There's a time to measure, right?
Okay.
Because otherwise there's always a story, right?
What do you mean by that?
Well, one of my favorite motivational quotes, positive thinking quotes, came from Jim Rohn, who said, and this was many, many years ago, when he said, you should make it a goal to be a millionaire, not for the money, but for what you need to become to make the money.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. And so did we hit the number? Did we miss? Like, if we miss our number,
Hmm.
does that mean we're bad? Should I take my ball and go home? No, because guess what? If you miss your number, if the year was crap, and Jess, it'll be hard for people listening to the show to believe this, but we've had bad years.
We have.
Right? And you know, I can say that every month is the end of the year.
Right.
I can say that every day, but the reality is we live in a society where, you know, occasionally if you're truly in a company that thinks fiscal year that's off of calendar year, you might have it. But you know, everyone, you know, this is we're coming to the end of 2022.
Yep.
Why is there a big old party that no one can get out of or go to the bathroom or anything like that in Times Square in New York? Why to watch this goofy crystal lighted ball drop, to have, you know, at least in the 1940s, that was probably like really, it was like watching fireworks or something. Now it's like, you know, but because there's a freshness. It's like, okay, guess what?
Right.
And you know, I could say, you know what, on Monday everything's new. I'm wiping out everything that happened before Monday, because Monday is a new day. You know, Jess, today is the first day of the rest of your life.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Except
Except it's not.
So there is an advantage to the finish line, and to some degree, what I would recommend
Hmm.
is, I think, more attention, and it requires a sophisticated mind, right? It you know, the danger is if this becomes the scoreboard, then you get the bad behaviors.
Well, so I was going to ask you that. Is this all about keeping score?
Not if it's done right. Because if you're keeping score, you're scoring on quality inputs.
Tell me more.
If you're playing baseball,
Hmm.
your goal should not be to get a hit. It should be to have a good at bat. It should be put a good swing on the ball. It should be execute my plan. Right? Which is, I've got a hypothesis going into it. I have an outcome. I can go back. I can assess the outcome. Now, if I over assess
Hmm.
one at bat, I'll be driven crazy. And
Yep.
right. You know, when you talk to football coaches in the NFL, when the season was 16 games, the way they looked at, you know, they looked at the game as 4 quarters, but they also looked at the season as 4 quarters.
Right.
Right. Joe
Yep.
Gibbs used to talk about, we were 2-2, 3-1, right. And
Yep.
and I want to be better in the fourth quarter than I am in the first quarter. Right.
Yep.
And the reason for that is that if you wait until the end of the year, right? Hey, we just want to get better. Hey, we just want to get better. Yeah, that's true. You just want to get better. And ultimately that's what matters. But at the same time, you do also have to produce results. Right. So kind of, so what the year end does is it has a very major behavioral component to it. Because it has a freshness to it. It's, you know, the beginning of the year, the beginning of the month, and the beginning of the week are, in the year, months, and weeks, the highest numbers of new people go to work out.
Yep.
You know, because it's hard to change in the middle. It's easier to change with, okay, let's go. And so why on the quarter? Because you know what? I believe that learning is the most important thing. And so when we talk about the metrics and the scoreboard,
Yep.
those are quality inputs, right? And you know how happy I was from that standpoint.
Yes, I do.
But if you remember what I did, and here's the giveaway to know if I'm really mad or not, and that is, if I'm quoting Ricky Bobby, then I'm performative mad.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so.
And I knew you
know,
weren't mad, because I know
I
I've seen what that looks like before, and that's not what it was.
I mean, you know what they call the runner-up, don't you? First loser. You know what they call the second runner-up, second loser. Did you know, actually, very interestingly, in the Olympics, the person who wins the gold medal
Uh-huh.
very happy. The person who wins the bronze medal, very happy.
Very happy.
The person who wins the silver medal, not happy.
No. Yeah.
So the joke was, and if you remember, Jess, we crossed the number on Monday. So
I know.
the threshold that we didn't hit on Friday, we hit on Monday.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And so like it literally makes no difference.
It doesn't.
Except the third quarter ended, and
Right.
we were 99.5%. Or I'm sorry, we were 99.8%.
I'm not that good at that math, but that sounds
we were
about right.
99.8% to target.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Right. But do you know what they call 99.8% to the finish line?
Not across the finish line.
They call it did not finish. If you get to 99.8% towards the finish line,
and if you're not first,
did not
last.
finish. No, not even. Like you know what? You're not even last. You didn't finish.
That's true. Okay, fair.
Didn't even finish. You're not.
Fair.
Get, right. So
Fair.
now, is there a value? Like, now of course, we blew out what our number was for actually that quarter, but
Yep.
but yeah, there's a basis to that, because it's like, okay, well here's a little bit of reality check. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what happens is, if you don't have those points, and just so we're clear, we missed our number in the second quarter.
I know.
And we missed our number, pretty healthily in terms of what our target number was, right? And because of that, we took stock.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually kind of fun. I wonder if sometimes I spend too much time talking to all these analysts who are, asking me about our perspective on what we're seeing in the market, et cetera. But what is interesting is it actually forces me, like, it's almost like I'm reporting our numbers to the financial community, that it's causing me to it's interesting that
Yeah.
And so we missed the number. And actually, like, as I was explaining what's happening, the on a couple calls, like, oh, so it sounds like you had a really bad quarter. I'm like, no, it wasn't really bad. Well, and all of a sudden, the way they asked the question, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess on that basis, yeah, it's bad, but
Right.
we had identified an underlying cause. We had seen decision cycles getting longer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yep.
so what I told them, I remember telling, and I actually got to talk to the person last week on this, because I said, here's my hypothesis. My hypothesis is that our Q3, the reason I'm saying this is not a bad quarter is that I expect Q3 to not only cover its number, but to make up the delta for what we missed in Q2. Right?
I remember you told me that, and I was a little skeptical of it.
And he said, well, I guess then we'll know when we talk to you in 3 months. And and by the way, we blew that number out of the water, right? We went past that. But the point of it was, had we not looked at it as the end of the quarter, had that not been a line of measurement, then it just would have. And you remember when that was how we did things.
Yeah.
Right.
I do.
And it just kind of morphed. And look, especially if you're talking to an entrepreneur or someone who's growth focused, there's always a story. Because here's the other thing that's interesting. If you have a bad year, bad month, bad quarter, bad year, does that mean you should crawl under a rock and disappear? No, you got to show up the next day.
Yeah.
Right. That's called resilience.
Well, and so
you can't have resilience without some degree of optimism.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. The point you're bringing up is an interesting one, talking about, had we not tracked quarter, you wouldn't have had the hypothesis of sales cycles are getting longer. And that actually hits a little bit on what we talked about last week around kind of paying attention to that. Like, so yeah, I totally get what you're saying about being able to find those indicators like that. Like, you need the waypoint to be able to determine what are those indicators for closing the sale, developing your client base.
And so, there's a time to stop, measure, assess, learn, reset, and move forward. And so you have, and anyone who listens to us knows that I'm a huge believer in 90-day acceleration cycles.
Yep.
And I think that grouping, and it's probably just because of how I've been conditioned, this is probably nurture. I think grouping 4 90-day acceleration cycles together is a clump. And I think there's 90 days. I think there's 1 year. I think there's 3 years. I think those are good clumps. Those are good times and I think that there's a place where you have to say there's a finish line, right? There's this point, we've crossed this, and and by the way, the finish line is also the start line. And you know what? That is done correctly. That is refreshing.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it also, if you do it right, and actually I was doing an interview for a blog post earlier today, and one of the things that I talked about was the danger of success, right? And actually, the more we are quote unquote successful, the more our neural pathways actually begin to harden, right? And so this is the hammer nail problem, right? You see success here, you see success, you see success, you see success. And by the way, lots of research has demonstrated that the first sign of failure is success, right? It's called reversion to the mean. And you don't adjust your thinking because you've kind of defined your success as who you are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I do think that, I think that I think the end of quarters matter. And I do think that the fourth quarter is different.
Why is the fourth quarter different? Is it because of what I brought up, or do you have a different take on that?
It's what you brought up, but I don't think what you brought up is wrong, right? There's a place where, you remember we talked to, early on when we started doing playbooks, we would talk, and they had a couple companies we talked to, and they had annual quotas.
Yep.
Right. And in fairness, they were selling enterprise. So it was very inconsistent sales cycles. So I think, if I remember correctly, we were talking, and they had like a $2 million annual quota. I think 30% of their sales team hit quota. Of the 30% that hit quota, I think that 80% or 90%, actually it wasn't that many, so I can't even think you break it, but hit it in December, and one deal was responsible for at least a third, and in some cases 50% or more of. So it wasn't even like they hit it systemically, right? So they had a major quota problem, and the thing was, the only number that mattered was the annual number.
Right.
And so we recommended, look, you got to have a quarterly target.
Right.
And well, the nature of, there were some segments of their business where, you'd have a blowout year, you'd make 4 or 5 sales in the year. Well, how do you have a quarterly number? And I said, look, the quarter number doesn't have to be $500,000.
Right.
Make it 250,000, make it 333, something like that. The point being, it's the year number that matters. But if we're off, and by the way, the way I would look at it is, I'd have my trailing 12 months, my trailing 90 days, and my forward looking, because the reason that fourth quarter is so hectic, the reason there's so much chaos, and why these RevOps get ready for fourth quarter, is because of bad process. Fourth quarter is when everything comes home to roost. Fourth quarter is when you pay the price for everything that you put off.
Okay.
Right. Fourth quarter is when you make President's Club. Well, on one hand, it probably should be, because President's Club is supposed to be an achievement. So if you're hitting President's Club halfway through, then maybe President's Club isn't doing the job that it's supposed to be doing. And fourth quarter is, things are closing. And by the way, psychologically in the market, I find that the fourth quarter is an amazing time to close business, because people like to clean things up.
Oh yeah.
Right. And by the way, I find fourth quarter, it's not as true as it used to be. Not a great quarter to get things started. So I've always had a strategy of, brand new cycles. Hey, let's set the seeds to pick them up and get them going in January. Right?
Yeah.
Hey, new year, new stuff, et cetera. Right. And so there are different motions, different flows. There is a whole lot more distraction, right? Reality comes home to roost, right? It's the 4th grade diorama syndrome.
Yep.
Right. All of a sudden the days are running out.
Right.
The challenge for RevOps teams is, unfortunately, listening to this episode now, not going to do you any
Too late.
right?
Yeah.
And so what I, as a RevOps team, you should know coming into the fourth quarter, people are gonna fight against process more, right?
Why is that?
Well, assignment rules, deal desks, confirming.
Because they're trying to get that closed.
So
And they don't want to slow it down.
Or they're trying to get it closed. They don't want to slow down, or there's a shortfall, or, hey, you know what? All of a sudden now, if this doesn't happen, that it is the difference between making President's Club, not making President's Club.
Yep.
Why does in any meeting, why does everything happen in the last 5 to 10% of the time in the meeting? Because, okay, it's coming to a close. We gotta, right? So all of those things come about.
Sure.
What a RevOps team should, like what I would tell a RevOps team, especially if they're taking a strategic approach, is now is the time to be thinking about Q4 2023, right? Because if you really think about it, and you take our 3 zones of execution, this 90 days is we're getting the stuff done that's been on, that's
right.
on target. We're looking
Sure.
to, certainly RevOps team should be thinking 20. If RevOps teams right now aren't thinking 2024, then you're the administrative team. You're not the RevOps team, right? No offense, right? Because 2020, because it's like, okay, how are we staging? And by the way, if you haven't been thinking 2023 all of this year,
Right.
then, there is no upstream. There is no staging. There is no real enablement, right? Enablement is not, hey, here's this piece. Enablement is systemizing, structuring, et cetera. And so I think that, yeah, there is a difference. The way I look at 90-day acceleration cycles is I actually refer to them as 4 and 1s. You have 4 acceleration cycles,
Mhm.
and they combine to be 1.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Right. And what I would say is on the 90-day acceleration, I always think that learning and quantifying and measuring learning is like, that is the forward-looking indicator of all forward-looking indicators. And that is the measurement
Sure.
of resilience is what's your rate of learning. But, in a 90-day acceleration cycle, I think learning is the most important. Which is why I did not freak out at all. I don't think you were probably a little bit more spooked at our Q2.
Oh yeah. I think
Right.
yeah. Thinking back to conversations we had, I was definitely much more nervous than you were.
Right. And so learning is the most important thing in the 90-day acceleration cycle. And one of the things you got to be careful about, and again, think about this. We had a momentous Q4. We had
Yep.
a really good Q1.
Yep.
So the fact that we underperformed in Q2, I mean, to some degree, yeah.
Yeah.
That's, I would expect that. So learning is the most important in that 90-day cycle. When you group the 4 together, okay, now results matter. Because
Okay.
and like
I
I saw this with I saw this when I was a financial advisor. People always underestimate what they're going to need because the way they think about it is, well, yeah, the fence was $25,000, but I mean that was a one-time expense. What they didn't account for though is every year is filled with lots of one-time expenses. Right? So they would go, well, you can't count that 25,000 because we're not going to do that again next year. Right? But next year it's going to be the roof. And the year after that it's going to be this, and the year after that, right? There's always, right? And so when you go to the course of a year, it's like, okay, where are we? What happened? So it's kind of like the difference between the 4 weeks of our typical road mapping process, right? We deliver the roadmap and it's all open for discussion. Don't worry, this, right? Now, over the next 4 weeks, this thing better be locked in.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, the quarter is a round of hands. The year is the tournament, right?
Okay.
So you're playing poker. How'd I do at the table tonight, right? How did I do in the tournament? Now, if I lose the tournament, doesn't mean I'm not playing the next tournament.
Right.
But, and if I lose the round or the set of rounds, hey, you know what? Sometimes shit happens. right? Sometimes stuff happens and it's not your fault. What, on any given night, poker is as much a game of luck, though there's still skill involved. The more hands you play, the more the skill of the player tells the difference. The better skilled player, and so at what point do you make the decision that your input is not the right input, that you need to make the adjustment? Right. That's where the quarter.
Yep.
By the way, we saw some things in the second quarter that were performance oriented. We saw some closing numbers that went down. We reinforced an area to make sure that we weren't overspending time, but we also didn't freak out. It would have been easy to freak out, but we didn't freak out because, okay, look, this is an outlier performance. And actually, I went back and took a look at some numbers on a quarter by quarter basis. And it really is, the second quarter was an outlier. Right?
Oh, really?
Yeah. The lowest win rate in the last 3 years.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Although interestingly, the revenue win rate wasn't at anywhere near as out of whack as the number win rate was.
Yep.
Right. So number of opportunities. So again, all those things kind of came about that if that quarter hadn't ended, then it, where do you break that apart? How it leads to consistency. So yeah, I do think that it's different.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring this up too, because those are the places where we do, and you, like, I don't think we have as formal a closing out of a quarter as certainly a larger organization, or probably I would say most organizations do. But it is the time when you and I start thinking about, okay, what adjustments are we going to make going into the next quarter? And certainly, and I do think some of this is because we do have time off in December because of holidays. But certainly go into January, you and I are looking at, okay, what's the game we're going to play this year? What adjustments are we going to make to the team? What are the new things we're going to roll out? So I do think there's that natural progression of that.
And there's another element too, where, and this is something, it's not too late for RevOps to do. I don't remember who said this, but a great quote: in the middle, everything feels like failure. And the problem, especially in the world that we're in the context of the world that we're in, as we were saying in the beginning, where everything's crazy. One of the things that happen, as you move forward, as you grow, you bring on more complexity. Complexity is the toxin of growth. There's more and more and more initiatives that are out there, and you find yourself in the middle of more and more and more and more. One of the reasons why I like 90-day acceleration cycles is there should be, you're creating beginnings, middles, and ends. Yeah. But at the end of the year, like, this is the time to close things out. This is the time to call things finished. And even if they're not done, you still want to get as much of it to be called finished. So now we're bringing in new, because what happens over time is we become increasingly symptoms driven. Here, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. And
yep.
Right. And the thing that's interesting is, the moment you begin to make a change on something, if it's a good change, especially, you begin to see an improvement. It stops being an acute pain point.
Yep.
But it's not done. And so all of a sudden, because it stopped being an acute pain point, something else is the acute pain point. And it's like, oh no, we need this. And now you're running to do that. And you didn't finish the other thing, right? So all of a sudden it begins to atrophy. And, and because it wasn't finished, things weren't locked in. And so you haven't really, the new state to understand upstream, downstream, side stream, right? And now you bring on the next thing, and now you bring on the next thing, and now you bring on the next thing. And then you're jumping back to the thing that you did 9 months ago, but because it wasn't right, and now you're juggling, then you're playing whack-a-mole, and it just gets, right?
We see that.
This is the time to find where can you get to complete on everything, even if it's not done, so that now we come into next year and we have a reprioritization.
Yep.
And we get to craft and move to a more consistent behavior, more consistent performance, more consistent performance, not performance as results, more consistent performance as if I can do consistent quality inputs then my learning will be more valuable, and the outcomes will compound.
So is that what you're talking about when you say we should be thinking about Q4 2023, or like what are when you say that, like how do you what's actionable, like what should you be thinking about, what should you be planning for when we talk about planning for Q4 of next year?
Well, you should be preparing for what the cycle is. You should be preparing that, the first quarter is a great time to begin new ideas, new things, that have more complexity, that have longer gestation periods, because there's less, there typically is a lesser sense of urgency. Maybe you need to update your economic models or something like that. First quarter is a good time to do that, because there's a little bit more space. Fourth quarter is a bad time to do that, because space is more constrained.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Go ahead and run the reverse wide receiver jet stream from your side of the 50-yard line. You probably don't want to do that from the 11-yard line.
Right.
Right. The risk reward's just not the same. So understand there's different cycles, there's different parts of the field. Realize that you are going to be, we are going to have to be a little bit more responsive to the tactical things. So maybe let's not be, let's like, I like the idea of 4 launches of your CRM. Let's make the strategic launch, this is why we do our, sales kickoffs and all those things. Let's do our strategic stuff. Hey, big picture, where we're going. Let's right. And the fourth quarter, you have a launch, but it's more about tightening things up. It's not a lot of new things. It's, hey, there we go. Right. Complete into our next. And again, think about 4 and 1. And again, whatever your year is.
Sure.
We're humans. We live in years. We count our years. We call it our birthday. When someone says, how old are you? We don't say, well, I'm, my trailing 600 months is.
I'm going to start answering it that way.
There you go.
Just because I find it entertaining.
Right. And really you should be thinking again 2024, because that's, where are you going? What do you need to become?
Right. Yeah.
Right? Because again, the goal is learning. Right? The goal is learning in progress. And if you don't measure, right, there's a philosophy that says all progress begins with honesty. The problem is honesty is far more nuanced than it is black and white. But like I said, there is a time where measurement, like, because it would have been easy for me to say we were 99.8%. Yeah, we hit our number.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we basically hit our number. right.
So 99, right. And I think most people would agree 99.8%. That's a hit. Okay, well then, if 99.8 is a hit, wouldn't 99 be a hit? Well, if 99 is a hit, wouldn't 98 be a hit? And before you know it, you're like, well, okay, we're at 50%, but I mean, we considered 51% it, right? You just begin to degrade what is
right.
And you know what? The fact that we didn't hit the number, the good news is next year we get to hit it, and it'll be the first time we do it.
There we go.
Right. Right. And that is, so again, it's not the scoreboard. You have to be careful that it doesn't become the scoreboard.
Okay.
But it is a point. It's a very good point. Hypothesis, action, result, learn. Well, the result needs to be timed to something.
Yep.
How did we do on our hypothesis? Oh, wow, we way underperformed our hypothesis. Okay, well, wait a second. But we only did 5, and our hypothesis was we were going to do 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, okay. Well, wow, that changes. Right. So there's all kinds of things that come in. Hey, we blew away our number, but where it came from was something we hadn't even conceived of when we made our hypothesis. Okay. How much of that was blind luck and how much of that was perseverance? Luck.
Right. Yeah. Sure. All right. So I have a couple of key takeaways. So I liked what you said about having a finish line and also a starting line, those being key as you're working through things. Now is the time to be thinking of Q4 2023 and 2024. I don't think a lot of people think that way. I think everybody right now is hyper focused on the end of the year. And then I I think the other thing that gets missed frequently is the figure out like what your complete is and then reprioritize, you know, at the beginning of the next quarter. And I think that reprioritization gets lost. Like we just start doing new things frequently and we don't reprioritize, pick up, finish those key items. So those are my 3 big takeaways.
I want to hit on one item. You think everyone's obsessed about the end of the year right now, and I think that's probably true. I told you what my favorite Jim Rohnism was earlier: be a millionaire not for the money, but for what you have to become. My second one of my other favorite, actually my favorite is he's the one where I got the term: be careful of people who claim that they manufacture antiques. That's where that came from. But one of the things he talks about is, you know, ants think winter all summer and they think summer all winter. That's why they survive, right? And again, farmers think fall all spring and they think spring all fall, right? And so the reason that we're obsessed about the end of the year is because we have to be. And the reason that we have to be is because we weren't as strategic as we thought we were, right? And so I get that you can't be, right? And so you got to do what you got to do, but realize that's a major job that is the difference between tactical RevOps and strategic RevOps. And that's where you get the ramp, and that's where you get the lift. That's you can't get lift without space, right? If I put something right over your wing in the air and I threw as much air over the wing as you're not going to go anywhere,
right?
Because it doesn't create, right? You've got to create that space to generate lift, or you're extracting value you're not creating.
Yep, I agree.
Bam!
In case you're wondering, everything looks like failure in the middle is Cantor's law. Harvard professor.
Whose law?
Rosabeth Moss Cantor. Cantor's law. Everything looks like failure in the middle, for those that are curious.
All right, Jess. Well,
all right.
That takes care of this Friday.
Yeah.
What will we talk about next?
To be determined.
Until next time.
Thanks, everybody.
And that's a wrap on this episode of the RevOps Show. It may be too late to change your speed and course for this fourth quarter, but make sure you keep these insights in your back pocket for next year and every year after. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to go subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, leave us a review, and share the episode. If you have any questions you would like to ask Doug or Jess about the fourth quarter or anything else RevOps related, email me at hannah@imaginellc.com or hit us up on Twitter @demandcreator. Until next time, remember, you can't solve your upstream problems downstream.